forecast. The floodwaters are receding in Mobile, Alabama today after heavy rain and an intense storm surge slammed the area yesterday from what once was Hurricane George. There's rain today, however, a little lighter in Mobile and should taper off before the end of the day. But meanwhile, what's left of the storm, isolated tornadoes are in many areas in Alabama and even Georgia and Florida. Thanks for tuning in and once again to this special edition of Weather Center. I'm Mike Bono as we watch hurricane and then tropical storm and now tropical depression George wind down, but the effects of it are not done yet. Flash flood warnings and watches are in the area. In fact, warnings interspersed with many of these watches. Flash flood watches go over more of a period of time in many counties. For instance, from now till tomorrow for excessive rainfall causing runoff to get a little bit too high in Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. But flash flood warnings are for a shorter time frame, 6 to 12 hours. And many counties, even in Georgia, Quitman and Stewart counties near Columbus, with flash flood warnings, and anywhere from Holmes County in Florida, where we have an estimated 20 inches of rain already, on up into places like Geneva County in Alabama, where you had a tornado touchdown earlier today. Tropical depression George, as of 10 o'clock Central Daylight Time, located 30 miles north of Mobile, Alabama, moving northeast at only 6. That's 6 miles an hour is the problem. The rain continues to fall in many of the same areas. 35-mile-an-hour top winds with a 995 millibar pressure. That pressure is slowly going up, so the winds have come down. But still, with wind coming on shore, we have Levy County in Florida coming in with some coastal flood watches. Citrus and Levy counties, a little bit more of that water coming up in the Tampa Bay area. A little bit too much wind on shore. Well, we've had Jeff Morrow out there near one of those tornado watches. There were some tornadoes near Montgomery yesterday in Elmore. Now they seem to be in the eastern part of the state. We'll get to that in just a minute. But Jeff getting hammered still with heavy rain. Jeff, how does it look out there?
It's still pretty wet out here, Mike. We are still getting a very steady, I'd call it moderate rain, halfway between very light and, of course, the heavy rain we had earlier. So it's still coming down. And the wind's still pretty gusty as well. I would say sustained at around 20 to 25 miles an hour, maybe a gust occasionally in the last hour or two, upwards of 30 or 35. So it's still blowing here a little bit, which brings up a point. We had a man drive by here and say, you know, this is a very agriculturally rich area, particularly with the cotton crop, and they are picking the cotton crop right now. About a third of it evidently is in. However, with all this rain, those cotton balls on the plants get very heavy with all the added water, and then when you get this wind blowing, it tends to knock the cotton balls off the plant, and then it's lost. So they stand to potentially lose a significant amount of the cotton crop if that does indeed happen. Let's hope it doesn't and that the wind isn't quite that strong, because we've had 7 or 8 inches of rain, so the cotton's definitely very damp. Another thing I did want to mention, I misspoke a little bit earlier, said that the Montgomery branch of Auburn University was closed. That is not the case. They are open here. So just in case anybody thought they didn't have to go to class, sorry about that. You still have to go. And you better hurry. You're going to miss your class. But you better take your umbrella with you. Again, it's still raining fairly hard here in Montgomery. Looks like probably up over about 8 inches of rain here officially. But as of right now, no significant flooding problems right around the capital or the surrounding counties. We'll keep you updated. Back to you, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Jeff Morrow, and the heavy rain in Montgomery, Alabama, reporting. And the good news on the coastline is that the worst of George is now moving on past the Barrier Islands, and some folks are being allowed to return to their homes on the Barrier Islands, which got hit so hard with hurricane-force winds in all these areas. Gulf Shores, the community of Orange Beach, and Ono Island, folks are being allowed to return, in some cases only 10 families at a time, as the conditions get a little bit better, but a lot of damage in that area. And the Gulf Shores Intercoastal Canal Bridge has been opened along with the Alabama Point Bridge, but still some road closings like the exits of I-10 to the causeway in Mobile County are closed. We're looking at a 48-hour loop now. We go back 2 days showing the storm coming out of the Keys where hurricane conditions were witnessed, and it took the big curve. And you should be happy about this in Louisiana. Things could have been a lot worse. Your cotton crop could have gotten decimated there. But instead, New Orleans got some flooding off Pontchartrain, but the curve took the worst of it into Mississippi, Alabama, and now Florida, and even Georgia getting some awfully heavy rain. The center of our rotation to the northeast of Mobile now, but the clouds are very dense up to just about Birmingham, the rain clouds into Atlanta, and then some. And now some of the sunny skies in southeast Georgia and the Florida Panhandle are getting displaced by clouds. Now the highest cloud tops associated with the heaviest rain and even severe weather are in the orange, coming up through a lot of Georgia, Alabama, and down toward the coastline. You can see on this close-up radar some of the severest thunderstorms. We now have tornado warnings in Macon and Russell counties in Alabama right about here. And back in Stewart County, Georgia, you had a funnel cloud near Lumpkin. A lot of these storms have been moving northwest, so Macon and Russell counties now take cover for possible tornadoes. These could be very damaging. We had a tornado in Geneva County, Alabama earlier, much further south. The rain in Atlanta goes on. The severe threats from north of Columbus southward. Atlanta doesn't look like you're going to get severe, but a little bit too much rain falling in the lower Appalachian Mountains and up toward the Smokies. So you could be experiencing some excessive runoff there, as some of these rainfall totals have come in over a foot from Mobile, Biloxi almost that high, 16, and as this image shows, up in the 20-inch range around Milton and Munson, Florida, over 25 inches and even 20 inches of rain estimated back into parts of Florida around Holmes County as that rain continues to mount up. Look at this, just in the last 5 or 6 hours in eastern Alabama, up over 3-4 inches. Now some of the impacts still to be seen of this storm show as follows. Some pretty heavy seas still in the coastal waters and wind gusts, but the severe threat, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, tornado threat, and also some river flooding. We have some rivers to show you right now that still have that threat of flooding. In Mississippi, the Leaf River going 3 feet above flood stage by Thursday, and the Blackwater River, check this out, 13 feet above flood stage by Wednesday. Some of the rivers in this area could have floods of record. So flooding a big killer. You want to stay away from those creeks and do not drive your car through water-covered roadways. You don't know how deep the water could be. By all means, if the kids are out playing around water, keep them out of it. It could be dirty as well. Most of the flash flood deaths come from driving through high water. So that is our biggest threat right now from Tropical Depression George, is the severe weather that we're seeing in Georgia, Florida, and southeast Alabama, and the flooding that's coming in small streams and also rivers right now. We'll keep you posted on that throughout the afternoon into the evening. When away from the TV, on the internet, it's weather.com for the latest from the Weather Channel's website. Now back to the studio. Here's Bob.
Thank you very much, Mike. Severe weather threatens the Central Plains this afternoon going into the evening hours, and we also have that moisture streaming up from George. We'll be showing you all that on our current map. You can see the wet weather across the nation's heartland, but it's going to grow bigger and perhaps severe as time goes on. We've got the interaction of a chilly air mass coming down from Canada, an autumn air mass, and we've got the warm, moist air building around this low. And when this front continues to drop toward the south later, we're going to see severe weather perhaps exploding across Kansas and the western part of Missouri. We'll be keeping you posted. Also perhaps in the eastern part of Nebraska. Of course, we're still looking at George and the very heavy rainfall and the major flooding potential, but the northeast looking good. You couldn't ask for a better day. We've got temperatures not too hot, not too cold, no rain to deal with, but we do have some wet weather. A lot of it scooting out of Chicago. It's been a wet one today, heading toward Indianapolis, and there's just some unsettled weather as we've got a trough in place across the west, so some mountain showers. And there's the wet weather still exiting Chicago, but if you live on the east side of Chicago and you've got to pick the kids up pretty soon, well, it's still some light to moderate rain around. You've got to be careful. And as we check out Indianapolis, the rain that's leaving Chicago is headed your way. In fact, the southern end of it could skirt your suburbs in a matter of 2 or 3 hours. So that means if you've got a commute home or expecting someone home from work, they could be driving in some wet weather later, and you can see it just now crossing the Illinois-Indiana border. But no severe weather in association with this. This is where we could see the severe weather. As the front comes down, we don't have any warnings in effect now in Kansas, but watch out Kansas City later as this moves toward the east and our atmosphere becomes increasingly unstable. And we've got a